Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the program this morning. Now, our first conversation surrounds India's export on non-basmati rice. In 1995, Trinidad and Tobago was producing roughly 30% of the rice it ate. Well, take that just about 20 years later, we're only producing for around 12% of what our population consumes. In fact, initiatives have been put in place. Whether or not they are being successful to alleviate the pressures on the market, what does India's exports mean for Trinidad and Tobago? Well, the ban on the exports at least. And how will this affect food inflation? Well, I'm joined this morning by an individual who could possibly answer all these questions for us, at least give us an idea. It's the president of the Supermarkets Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Rajiv Dipti. Hello, sir. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Keaton, and good morning to all your viewers on AM Prime. Happy to be here.
Well, Mr. Dipti, this is not the first time that India has actually put a ban on rice exports. In fact, the last time they did so, we saw rice prices that skyrocketed to record highs. Are we seeing a similar thing happening right now?
So I think that in the context of how you're looking at it, it's very important because India today is more of one of the primary exporters of rice to the world, in particular, some of its varieties, including the non-basmati white rice, and all the rice varieties accounted for. It accounts for nearly 40% of the world's supply of rice, and that's very significant. There's been a lot of issues where climate change has come into focus, and that really has been one of the primary factors in their grounding their exports, because at this time they've had real extremes of weather. You've had the monsoon on one side, which has really, flooded out a lot of the acreages of fields, and that's led to a decline in harvests and yields. And on the other side, you've had drought with a lot of heat waves, and that's also affected them significantly. They've also been suffering from soaring inflation, and I think that when you consider rice prices have gone up nearly 13% within India, that this is an attempt by them to control the inflation and the impact on the domestic supply to their own customers, that being the Indian population. So what does it mean for the rest of the world? It means that there's going to be significant pressure on substitutes that are available. And I think that what we've seen in some of the countries that have responded to this export ban is that there's been a concern with stockpiling and hoarding of the supplies that are outside. The question really remains and lingers: how long is this export ban going to last? Because that's going to play into the longer term arrangements of how the supply continues to come within the Caribbean and looking at the domestic market, because that's where our focus is right now. We really have, I think it's important to highlight that those particular rice varieties, the jasmine and the basmati, they're a niche market. In Trinidad, we really focus on the parboiled brown and white rice, and a lot of that comes from Guyana. So what does that mean for our suppliers in Guyana? It means that if this export ban was to linger, that we're going to see significant price pressures from them if there's an opportunity for them to substitute some of that rice production into filling the supply holes, because that's what's going to take place. I think we're going right now. We've had a local supplier, par excellence, drop their prices by about 10% in the last 2 weeks, as they've acknowledged that lowering the lowered cost of freight and lowered cost of shipping has contributed to that. We've seen some stabilization of prices, in particular with staples, and where rice is concerned, it's a product that really contributes about 20% to the essential diets of persons around the world. And I think that it's a situation we're going to monitor. I think there's an opportunity, Keaton, if I'm being quite open about it here, for regional and domestic rice production to amp up because we have the potential within the market.
Oh, well, we have the potential, but what are the measures currently being implemented? In fact, profoundly speaking, what is the impact on Tobago this morning as we speak?
The impact of the export ban, as it is right now, there's first of all, there's no need to be alarmed by any concerns about shortages. That's not something that we've had any indications of. Our rice supply remains steady and stable. Our suppliers have given us the assurances that the varieties that are consumed within Trinidad and Tobago remain in ample supply in the short to medium term. Again, the longer term implications of India's export ban means that there's going to be some pressures on the varieties that are consumed. Those are the non-basmati white rice and some of the basmati varieties, and that's going to that is going to come under some. It's going to come under the microscope in some time because we're all examining how long is this going to last. Is it going to last for a few months? Is it going to last for a year? How long is India planning to control this? I think what you're going to see, Keaton, is that there are going to be some suppliers of rice that are going to be stepping in to fill the supply holes because there's opportunity here for substitutes to take place in the market, and there's going to be different varieties from different producers. You have China, you have Brazil, you have Uruguay. There's lots of potential within the Caribbean and Latin America for substitutes to make an impact on the market.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's very interesting to note. Now, on a side note, a couple of years ago, there was a ribbon cutting ceremony for a rice plant in Couva, and that was due to actually account, at least eventually, for about 30% of the rice that we consume here in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, you've just noted that we rely heavily on Ghana for palm oil and brown rice, but is there any indication that our rice industry here in Trinidad and Tobago is growing?
You know, Keaton, that's an excellent point to note because we've always been advocating for at least increased productions in the staples. You look at rice, you look at sugar, you look at certain things that can be domestically relied upon to decrease our import reliance when it comes to food security. And again, this is just another example of those countries that are tending to themselves. I mean, the region really has to examine its food security concerns. Right now, with respect to that particular project, I don't believe it's really yielded the results as yet. And the thing is, these are projects that have a lot of potential, but are they receiving the attention, the focus, the care that they deserve? Is it something that's going to come to market? With respect to our suppliers within the industry, we are still heavily reliant on the import of these staples, and they are passing on the reduction in prices as they fetch them, as noted with the Par Excellence brand, and that's something that we continue to monitor. We absolutely have no control over the supply and the prices thereof, but would we like to see more domestic production, more regional production? These are things that come into focus clearly when there are crises like this, Keita.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if you can explain this to me, because the answer seems obvious, that if you yourself have indicated there is opportunity for greater local and regional growth within the markets for rice production, if that be the case now, why is it that we're only recognizing it in the face of, well, you said not to panic, but let's just say it's a crisis, and I know that developing nations will be impacted very much by this particular ban on exports. But why is it that we're relying so heavily on imports if there is greater potential that exists for the domestic and regional markets?
because the volumes, the prices are simply more accessible to us right now, particularly when the cost of production is at a certain level. Keep in mind that the cost of fertilizers has gone up a lot and that there are significant problems with production, not to mention the factors, both economic and socioeconomic, that go around that, and the appetite, both politically and socially, to develop these outputs. I think that we've seen stakeholders, particularly in Guyana, indicate that they are willing to ramp up production in a significant way to fill some of these gaps in supply, and that measure of intent is something that is welcomed by the market. Does it mean that we've seen the same thing in Trinidad and Tobago? It's something that, again, it really needs to have that trust and push, both politically and both within the industry, and the support provided within that framework to those agripreneurs that go into the market. Right now, when we speak to a lot of them, they indicate that there are a lot of concerns. There's crime, there's the infrastructure, there's a lot of mitigating factors into developing these aspects of the industry and output further. So, Keaton, it's really a snowball or confluence of factors.
Do you think it'll be easy to actually, again, yes, producers in Ghana have indicated that they're willing to increase output. Do you think it's easy, though, to increase output at a domestic and regional level? You've highlighted a number of factors, but surely there are ways that we can get over this.
Well, these things take time, particularly when you're talking about the cycle of harvest and yields. And it's something that I think could be done. The markets that we're talking about for supply, we're a country of about 1.3 million people. The potential for what we're seeing the output to be in places like Guyana is tremendous, particularly that they're already in the business and have grown the business to a certain level where they can increase that output. And when you consider the varieties that we're importing right now, I would say that we are in a good place. But when we look at domestic food production, Keaton, there's a lot left to be desired from what we're seeing right now. And from the state entities that support that framework, is particularly, again, when we consider these staples, because tomorrow we'll have a conversation about something else. It could be wheat. Yeah. Keep in mind that where these price pressures apply to rice, wheat also comes into focus because it's a part substitute. We've seen price reductions, for example, in flour, and all of that is contingent on lowered cost of freight. But where the commodities market is concerned, it'll be interesting to examine the long-term impact of these policies by major players on the commodities market. Mm-hmm.
Final question, Mr. Dipty. You mentioned earlier the possibility of looking at alternatives, to help this situation. What are those alternatives that you speak of?
There are a lot of substitutes and a lot of different varieties that are in production within the region, within Guyana. Like I said, some of the rice also comes from Brazil, Uruguay. Some of it possibly comes from the United States. Our suppliers are very agile to fetch alternatives to bring them to market. There are a lot of parallel distributors of rice in the market right now. Customers have their preferences, and again, the major ones here are the parboiled, brown and white rice, and that's something that we see. And I don't expect any major shifts in consumer preferences. However, I think what we see right now is an appetite to keep those options at a very price-sensitive point to the consumer, because that's the conversation we continue to have with our distributors and suppliers of all goods, to ensure that the best prices come to the customers at a time when their pockets simply cannot afford more.
Mr. Dipty, it has been a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. A lot more that we can get into, but I think let's pause on there for now. I think the most pertinent points that you've mentioned, which is good, is one, there's no need to panic, as yet at least, and two, where there is adversity, there's opportunity when you take a look at the domestic and regional potential. It's whether or not we arrive to that point is the case. But thank you very much, Mr. Dipty, for joining me this morning.
Thank you for having me, Keaton, and a wonderful morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Take care.
All the best. President of the Supermarkets Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Rajiv Dipty, joining me this morning on AM Prime. The export ban on non-basmati rice from India will have an impact, is already having an impact on the developing world. Fortunately, nothing to panic about here in TNT as yet. Ghana's producers have indicated their willingness to increase outputs, but the potential exists domestically and regionally, of course, of a greater rice production. Whether or not we will actually get to that point, well, who knows? History will suggest probably not. And if we do, it's going to take quite some time. But for now, Mr. Dipty has indicated that there's nothing to panic about as yet. We know countries such as Singapore and Malaysia, who are heavily dependent on Indian rice, well, they've already indicated their desire to have exemptions made simply because they're heavily reliant on food imports. Countries in Africa as well are also going to feel this because within the last 3 years, India has become a major exporter to rice. It always exported rice, but the major exporter to rice to Africa. Of course, India accounting for about 40% of the world's rice exports. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break here now. Upon our return, we'll get into another conversation this morning. Quite an interesting one. And I'll encourage you to stay tuned for the next conversation. We'll be right back after this.
We exposed 5 strangers to KFC's delicious chicken to see if any time could be KFC time. And at the first bite, the party began. We repeated the experiment during the day, during business hours, on weekends, with sunshine, with rain. And it's confirmed. KFC's flavor makes anytime KFC time. KFC, it's finger licking good.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces flagship Mac Bean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best, I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw,
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN.
the content capital.
My name is Carl Media, and the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Hello and welcome back to the program, and thank you for making time to be with me this morning and to join our guests for the conversation. So when you think about energy, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Well, for some it might be a drink, for some it might be exercise, or for others it's actually meditations. And the different forms of meditations, as well as the ability to balance the energy within your mind, body and spirit. Such form, or one such form at least, or one such practice, is Qigong. And to have a better understanding of precisely what that is, how it helps your body, the benefits that you receive or you gain when practicing Qigong, I'm joined this morning by practitioner and teacher, Miss Carol Reese. Hello, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Keaton. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much for joining me this morning. First of all, what exactly is Qigong? In fact, even from a historical context, where did it come from and how has it evolved?
Okay, well, if we talk about Qigong is energy force, and Gong, cultivation. So it's cultivation of the energy. Qigong, when we do Qigong, basically we are energy beings. We have energy within, and there's energy outside on the trees, etc. So what we want to do, we want to get the energy going to our different parts of our body, our organs, and to balance it. We can't have excess, we can't have a little. That means we're going to be ill. So we want to have the Qigong going throughout our body to balance, and I think you know the terminology yin and yang. Right, so we balance it and we have good health. And if we think back of how it got started, this happened in China about 5,000 years ago. The people would work in the fields and they would see the animals around them. When they got back home, they'd be drenched, tired, and sometimes they would rest, and then they started to get ill. But what they realized is when they got back home, if they exercise, they found, and they exercise, they started doing it like the animals that they saw. They found that they were not getting as ill. And as time progressed, what they did, they started doing more of those forms, and they realized they were getting increasingly much better. And if we go back to those days in the Song Dynasty, we had an Admiral, Qi, who was extremely successful. In the 12th century, he won all his battles, but when he was going to battle, he realized that his men were dying. So he got in contact with the Shaolin monk, and together they came up with a form called Bagwan Jin. And by doing the Bagwan Jin, the men survived and they lived longer. Bagwan Jin started in that time. Today we practice Bagwan Jin.
Oh.
Yes, so what we would find, of course, is that Bagwan Jin in those days, we had about 12 different steps. Now we have about 8.
Okay.
But then, you know, it's time from that, but we still practice it, and everyone you would find may have different steps for their Bagwan Jin. But basically, it is Qigong. It's movement, it's meditation, and, you know, breathing. And that is what makes a difference.
Well, that's rather interesting. In fact, some viewers watching this morning, I know, at least for me, the first thing I thought is this similar to Tai Chi? Are there differences, similarities to Tai Chi?
Well, if we look, as I said, when we Qigong, we thought of it breath work and energy movement. Tai Chi Quan is, if we break it up, means big, boxing, Quan, boxing. So it's similar in that it's breath work, it's meditation, but it's a form of martial arts.
Okay.
Right? Similarly, if we look at yoga, yoga is very similar also. We go into deep meditation, but it's just the calisthenics. Sometimes the movements, etc., is a bit more intense.
I think you've hinted at the different types of forms of Qigong. Is that the case? If so, could you expand on that, please?
Yes, so as I told you just now, we had Bagwan Jin of yesteryear, and we do have of yesteryear something called the snake routine, the snake and the turtle. That's our yesteryear. Now we have the mint, and the mint are the new forms. We have the Guling, we have fire Qigong. We have quite a variety of Qigong being offered now.
What is fire Qigong? That caught my attention.
Well, fire Qigong is basically it deals with the heart.
Okay.
Okay, it deals with the heart, and you start this very slowly, and it's all the movements that we know. You come from the heart, you go out, come back in, and then you go up and down. You do the legs to the side and with the hands. So you do it very slowly, and then you do it in 3 minutes time. In that 3 minutes, you would actually work as though you did a 20 minutes routine.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yes.
So let's get more into the finer details as to precisely the benefits of Qigong. Exactly what does Qigong do? What does it help with? How does it work?
As Qigong deals with energy, it deals with energy and moving the energy throughout the body. But if we go back as to in real time, we had Madame Guling, and we have the Guling Cancer Walk. Guling was born in China. She lived in the US, and she got cervical cancer. She had 6 surgeries, and at the end of the last one, they told her no, her body could not take it. So she went back into herself, she went back home, and she started to remember her grandfather, who was a Taoist monk. And she went back to China, and she went to the Taoist monks, and they created a form called Guling Cancer Walk. Within doing it, the Guling Cancer Walk, she was cured. Well, it went into remission. And what she did after that, she started teaching it. It is a form of complementary medicine, cancer medicine, and it is done in Asia and some parts in the US. Sloan Kettering, I think that is the hospital in the US that it is done. It's complementary.
So there is evidence-based, I suppose, analysis that show the physical and mental benefits of Qigong.
Yes, Yes, as we see with Madame Gouling, and within recent times we have the mint forms of Qigong that Soren Kreen. You know, there are 5 different parts of Soren Kreen, and it all deals with one's health. One would get increase in concentration. And it's something we take for granted, our coordination, our balance. Those are it's simple, but you know, we need coordination, we need balance, you need to stand upright. You need to breathe at the culmination of it all.
Are there negative side effects or possible negative side effects?
Well, not that I know of, no. And Qigong is really, if I may say, for everyone, in that even though you are not well or you cannot walk, or you can do Qigong. It's about the energy. So you can't walk, we deal with breathing and you move your hands. Okay, mindfulness. You know, so it can be done for everyone.
That would have been my next question, whether or not Qigong is for everyone. You know, in your opinion, who should practice it, or if there are anyone or you know, who should avoid it. But I think you've just answered that, saying that Qigong is for everyone.
It is for everyone. It is for everyone. It's for young, not so young. And when you start Qigong, it's you work with yourself or you work with a group of people. It's your mindfulness. You decide you want to do Qigong. Okay, so you go to a particular teacher. And you ask questions. You dedicate yourself to it. Is it at a certain time? People are working now. It's, you know, they're on traffic, etc. So maybe you do it early in the morning. Maybe you do it when you get home. But it's dedication and perseverance. You know, as Bruce Lee said, he's not scared of somebody who does 1,000 kicks. What he's scared about is a person who practices 1 kick 1,000 times. Right? So dedication and perseverance, you can do, you breathe, you relax, meditation, movement. But it's you have to put yourself into it. You get the mindfulness, the concentration, and after a while, there's an appreciation for nature. You look outside and suddenly, oh my God, this is amazing. But you open yourself up.
Is there any particular time of day which you advise, or is it advisable that one should practice Qigong?
No, at your own time, really. And as I said, people are working, so they get up early in the morning, you have to hit the traffic. And as one of my friends said, he said, Carol, when you see I get to that traffic light, I breathe. He said, I do, well, deep breathing. He said, I relax, traffic light changes, and I go again.
I'm very curious to know, because being in your presence, you have such a very calming energy about you and a calming effect. I feel relaxed actually just speaking to you.
Thank you.
How did you get into practicing Qigong and then teaching Qigong?
Thank you for asking me that, because if I may, I'd like to thank everyone who has helped me on this journey. I'd like to thank my husband, who's always 100% beside me, and my teachers, my friends, my family. So this really, my journey started maybe over 28 years ago. I started doing Tai Chi Quan. I totally enjoyed it, and then I started doing yoga. And after that, a friend called and she said, Carol, I'm doing a workshop. I have a son of the soil, who's Dr. Ashby, who's coming in to do the session. And I said, why not? I went, I was totally mesmerized with it. And I started doing Qigong, and I did a certification course with him. And I worked with Dr. Ashby for 2 years. And after that, he introduced me to his teacher, Tina Chan, who's from the Wudang territory. And Tina is a 5th-generation practitioner. I was very thrilled. So whenever I go to New York, I practice and I work one-to-one with Tina. It has been, for me, a journey that I have learned so much. I have grown so much. I have appreciated so much. It's my personal journey, but I love to share it. I really love to share it. And so now, I teach Qigong. I teach Qigong. We have a class. And some people in my class do have comorbidities. But we do it twice a week. We do the breathing, the movement. They attend, and everyone says it helps them. It helps them. Sometimes some people have to go for their test, their cancer test, and it is not upsetting, but a little bit nerve-wracking. They can practice their breathing, and be relaxed, and take it one day at a time.
You're constantly referring to this as your journey.
Yes.
Why would you refer to it as your journey?
Because I am now retired. And this is what I have decided I wanted to do, Qigong. But over 25 years ago, I saw something on television, Mr. Miyake, and I saw Tai Chi Kwan there. And I just looked at it and I decided I wanted to do that. There was something with the posture, the mental, the meditation, and that is where it started. It has helped me through my years, and now I am doing it with friends, and I also do, take classes.
Oh, wonderful. Before we have a demonstration part, which we're certainly appreciative for, let us also speak about what you have on, what it is you're wearing.
Oh, I am wearing my gi, and this is what we practice wear, to do Qigong. I thought I would wear today because we are talking Qigong, martial arts, etc. And from the time you see it, you just know this is what we're going to do.
Is there any particular reason or thinking behind wearing a gi while practicing Qigong?
It's comfortable.
Which is most important.
Movement-wise, you can move. It doesn't impede you. You have flow of, and it basically is a movement, meditation, and breathing. It helps with all of that. Very easy, very comfortable. And of course, the footwear must be comfortable. We women, we might want to just wear something, but it's footwear comfortable. Ease of movement, very important.
So I want to thank you for this part of this morning's interview, because we're going to get into a second part, which is a demonstration.
Yes.
What are we about to see?
Okay, so I'm going to do 2 parts, right? I'm going to do the Bhagwan Jin. Dr. Ashby taught me this, and we do it with my class. So this is called 8 brocades, and I'm going to do each part, we do 8 times. It's 8 different steps, but I'm just going to do 2. Okay? And then I'm going to do the snake routine. And Tina Chan taught me the snake routine. And this is also from her territory, the Wudang. As I said, she's a 5th-generation practitioner. The 8 brocades really is for all different parts of the body, as you would see demonstrated. Hands go up, head goes up. We go to the side, owl looking backwards. We go to the bow and arrow, you see the concentration. And then we go to dog wags its tail, you see you squat down and you go from side to side. And then at the end of it, it's just relaxation. For the snake, we see a little bit of the concentration, we see a little bit of the movement. All right, snake snivels into the cave. All right, it's comfortable. It's easy, it's breathing. And what you will see here is the movement, the fluid. It goes from one into the other. It is not difficult at all.
So we're about to see that. We're going to take a break here. And we're going to thank Ms. Reese for her explanations this morning. We have a better understanding now. When we return, we're going to have those 2 demonstrations on AM Prime this morning. So stick with us. We'll be right back after this.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The best birthday gifts are at dbesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
My name is Carl Media. I'm the founder and the host of ever-increasing voice ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Welcome back to AM Prime. Following that conversation with Miss Carol Reese, she's about to demonstrate for us Balgwanjin, also known as A brocades. Let's go to Miss Carol Reese now. Wonderful. That's simple. Yes. Very much simple. Now you're going to demonstrate this snake. Yes. Yeah? Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Cowries, this morning demonstrating first bag engine. And then the snake. Very simple, yet profound effects. Thank you so much. Ladies and it's a pleasure. It's been our pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, we break for news on the hour here on WESN.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Gary Griffith claims opposition leaders' recent comments meant to help people protect themselves. 110 persons arrested during home invasion arrest operation by the TTPS. And internationally, zoo in China denies using people in costume posing as bears. Now for the details. Gary Griffith says that unfortunately some would use Kamala Persad-Bissessa's recent controversial comments to serve their own interests. Days after a female homeowner shot and killed an intruder at her Chaguanas home, opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissessa is promising easier access to firearm users license for law-abiding citizens after the UNC wins the next general elections. And with this ease of access to legal firearms under a UNC government, she said at the party's public meeting in Chaguanas on Monday that citizens should light them up. Griffith said that he believes Persad-Bissessa was referring to the preservation of life of the licensed firearm holder. 110 persons have been arrested over the last 8 months in connection with reports of home invasions as investigators continue to intensify efforts to restore safety and security across the country. The arrests are a direct result of the strategies adopted by Commissioner of Police Erla Christopher and the executive of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to address reports of robberies, house break-ins, burglaries, and other gang-related offences. As a result, during the period of January to July 2023, a reduction in serious crimes across the 10 policing divisions was recorded, compared to the same period in 2022. This team is actively utilizing intelligence-led policing, which is data-driven and bolstered with timely crime analysis from the Crime and Problem Analysis branch to guide the development of resources where they are needed the most. Increased active directed patrols and visibility in communities and business areas are also serving as critical deterrents to criminal activities. Police are trying to identify a person's decomposing body that was found in the mangrove in Invaders Bay on Tuesday morning. Police said officers of the St. James Police Station received a report that a body was found off the Audrey Jeffers Highway at around 8 a.m. and went to the scene. Police went to the scene and were guided through the mangrove by a Venezuelan fisherman, where they found the person's body wearing a plaid shirt and a pair of black shoes. Investigators said the body was decomposed beyond recognition. Officers from the Homicide Bureau of Investigations Region 1 are continuing inquiries. Internationally, a zoo in eastern China is denying suggestions some of its bears might be people in costumes after photos of the animals standing like humans circulated online. The sun bears from Malaysia are smaller than other bears and look different but are the real thing, the Hangzhou Zoo said on Monday on its social media account. One employee said visits were being arranged for reporters on Monday to see them. Internet users questioned whether the zoo's bears were real after photos circulated showing one bear standing upright on slender hind legs. Sun bears are the size of large dogs, standing at most 1.3 meters tall on their hind legs, compared with up to 2.8 meters for grizzlies and other species, according to the zoo. Well, that's News to the Hour on WESN. I am Sierra Ali. Thanks for watching.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Thank you for staying with us this morning. We get into another conversation that is surrounding Commission of Inquiries. Well, exactly what are they? How do they work, and have they worked at all? There have been arguments put forward that commissions of inquiries should not be on the table anymore. Whilst there have been arguments that suggest they are effective, but change is needed to the Act in order to make it more effective. Well, I'm joined this morning by Senior Counsel Avery Sinanan as we get into this particular conversation. Hello, sir. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us, sir. I'll start by asking, so that there is an understanding, exactly what are commissions of inquiries and what are the powers of commissions of inquiries?
Well, I think we ought to start off by putting it in historical perspective. Commissions of inquiries is based on legislation. It's legislation which we inherited from England, and it is regarded as an adjunct to the furtherance of democracy. That is to say, when things occur in the public domain which impact on a significant number of individuals or organizations, and the regular agencies or the existing agencies are not equipped to handle an investigation, the government, the cabinet, would advise the president to appoint a commission of inquiry under the Commission of Inquiries Act, which was passed in 1892, and I'll have a little more to say about that later on. It's chapter 1901. And that Commission of Inquiry will carry out the investigation with a view to reporting on what caused the incident or what went wrong, and make recommendations in order to rectify it. And hopefully, when the report is tendered, the government would act on the report and implement some of the recommendations, again with a view to ensuring that the egregious circumstance does not reoccur.
Mm-hmm.
So that really is that encapsulates the gamut, as it were, of a commission of inquiry.
Now, if you were to speak about those recommendations from a general perspective, it is not up to any party to actually heed to such recommendations or put in place any sort of policy or action in line with such recommendations. There is no legally binding or any sort of obligation at all for such recommendations to be...
That is correct. That is correct. And the government of the day must have the political will, however unpopular the recommendations may be, to implement the recommendations, because if it is in the public's interest. And that is where we get to the situation that our experience over the years in Trinidad and Tobago is that, notwithstanding we have had many commissions of inquiry, I fear, and I dare say, many of the reports find themselves on the shelves of some government ministry gathering dust. Mm-hmm. And the cabinet really does not implement the recommendations. And I feel that the first order of business is that if you appoint a commission of inquiry, which are funded by taxpayers' money, or which is funded by taxpayers' money, then you have an obligation to let the public know what the report is about. Mm-hmm. During the course of the hearings and so on, there may be matters of national security, which the inquiry will not be held in public or held in camera, as we say. But at the end of the day, that report ought to be placed in Parliament. Mm-hmm. I think it should be mandatory that it be placed in Parliament. You see, the act was passed in 1892. That is the act that we inherited. And it is woefully outdated, and it needs to be updated. And the whole issue of, I beg your pardon, the whole issue of the commissions of inquiry needs to be revamped in consonance with the modern day requirements. Mm-hmm. And the public at the present time is not satisfied with you appointing a commission of inquiry and then you bury the report somewhere and they know nothing about it. At the end of the day, they're the ones paying for it, the taxpayers. And clearly we go back to the old adage, he who pays the piper calls the tune. Mm-hmm. So they really need to be informed, and that is the essence of promoting the democracy that I talk about.
Would you say, by virtue of the arguments put forward, that commissions of inquiries, therefore, are a waste?
No, I am not of that view. I think that, as I said earlier, they're a useful adjunct. Handled properly, a modified commission of inquiry regulation or regulated system is an adjunct to the promotion of democracy and the furtherance of our democracy. And it once the public has confidence in the appointees are appointed by the president on the advice of the cabinet. I think one area of reform could be that the members of the commission of inquiry be appointed by the cabinet, yes, but in consultation, or by the prime minister, but in consultation with the leader of the opposition. Mm-hmm. And that widens the participatory aspect of the appointment of a commission of inquiry, and it provides a platform for the public to buy into it and have confidence in it, you see?
Mm-hmm. Now, you've stated explicitly that, in your opinion, the Act is outdated. You think that the Act needs to be brought forward to modern times here in Trinidad and Tobago, in line with it. But there are many flaws currently as it stands. That has been already stated. One of the things that we speak of with commissions of inquiries are the powers associated with it and the powers of the commissioners. And one such flaw that you've pointed out is that commissioners do not have the powers to actually summon anyone before them.
Well, they do. They do have the powers to summon, issue subpoenas, what we call subpoenas, and bring witnesses before them. But that is an empty power in the sense that, or a power that is exercised in a vacuum, because once the commissioners, once the witness, I beg your pardon, decides not to come, yes, they could be charged under sections 11 or 12 of the Commissions of Inquiries Act, but they pay a fine. They're not compelled to attend, and that defeats the entire purpose. You can have a witness who has very salient and germane information to the Commission of Inquiry, to the terms of reference, and he says, well, all right, I'm not coming, I'll pay the fine. If the fine is a minimal, I think it's $2,000. I'll pay the fine. So I think that where the Commission of Inquiries Act needs to be beefed up and needs to be harnessed to take into account the modern situation is that the commissioners be given the power to recommend imprisonment. Now, the commissioners themselves may not have the power to do that, but they can refer to the High Court or High Court judge. Listen, look, we have summoned Mr. X. He has refused contumaciously not to come to this inquiry. It is absolutely necessary that he does come, and we are asking the High Court to intervene and enforce the recommendations of our subpoena. And the High Court could imprison the recalcitrant witness for a period of time until he decides to come to the Commission of Inquiry.
Now, with regard to something else that we've heard or learned of most recently with the Commission of Inquiry into Paria, is something that is referred to as salmon letters. Could you just kindly inform us what are salmon letters? And in this particular instance, a delay in the report being finalized is due to the salmon letters, how detailed salmon letters are in TNT. It takes quite some time. Could you just kindly explain that for us, please, Mr. Sinan?
Sure. The background to the salmon letters, it takes its name from Lord Salmon in England. And it was during a Commission of Inquiry there that it was recognized that people's reputations can be sullied by people coming and witnesses coming and making accusations and so on. And on the basis of those accusations, whether they're rooted in facts or not, the Commission of Inquiry may very well make findings based on those allegations and accusations. So it was thought, in keeping with the modern concept of natural justice, where the other party has to be heard, or the accused party has to be heard, that you will send him a salmon letter. Say, listen, look, we have evidence before us in which you are alleged to have done X, Y, or Z, or said X, Y, and Z. What are your views before you make our findings? And that is the essence of the salmon letters. And it goes to promote the interests of natural justice and giving the party against whom the allegations have been made an opportunity to address those allegations.
Now, are salmon letters also a reasonable argument in TNT for delays in publishing Commission of Inquiry reports?
Well, I think I think you're putting you're putting it the wrong way around. I think when the Commission of Inquiry is appointed and they set out their time schedule, their timeline, they should make allowances for the issuance of salmon letters, which invariably, of course, at the initial stages, they will not know how much time they need, but they must be generous in their assessment, having regards to the terms of the reference, so that they factor in the timeline, send out their salmon letters, and get the salmon letters back in time so that it minimizes mitigates the question of delay.
Now, are there any other alternatives that are proven to be perhaps more effective than commissions of inquiries when carrying out such investigations, producing recommendations, hoping that such incidents that took place in the first instance that required a commission of inquiry, are there any other more effective alternatives?
Well, I think recently you had an attempt to introduce another measure or another method with the barrier divers, when initially the cabinet appointed an executive committee to look at it. The problem with that was it did not engender confidence by the public in that arrangement, and there was a lot of clamoring from different corners that, listen, look, what was really needed here was an independent commission of inquiry, and I want to underscore this. Notwithstanding that the cabinet may have make the recommendation for the appointment of the commissioners, it is regarded as an independent body to carry out its investigation without fear or favor. And by and large, we have had that experience here in Trinidad, by and large. And so once that independent body reports, as I said, the confidence of the public is enhanced, and people buy into the report and the recommendations they've made. Now, your question is whether there are other alternatives. Well, I suggested one, in terms of the executive appointing a committee. Then ultimately there's the High Court, where people who are aggrieved can bring an action collectively. It is called a representative action on the basis of what has transpired. But then you see, it would be open or it would be necessary and incumbent on those persons bringing the action to carry out their own investigation and lay facts before the High Court. The High Court is not going to do that for them. The High Court is going to adjudicate on the facts. Say, look, you say this X, Y, and Z. Have you proved it on a balance of probabilities or beyond reasonable doubt, depending on the standard that is applied? So that in between those two extremes, let me put it that way, the Commission of Inquiry does in fact have a very significant function to perform. Because it is a fact-finding exercise, it garners information, and that information can be used as a platform to redress the situation or the egregious situation that has occurred in terms of moving forward.
City Council, therefore, you're arguing that commissions of inquiries sometimes are arguably essential and necessary.
Oh yes, definitely. I'm of the firm view that commissions of inquiry, independent commissions of inquiry, is an adjunct to the furtherance and promotion of our democracy. I think that is my candid view.
Now, with regard to, as you mentioned, the Act, and I'm going back there as we're coming towards the end of the interview, and the effectiveness of commissions of inquiries, the reports, the recommendations. As you've mentioned earlier, is it now that one of the obligations, if we were to amend the Act, there needs to be action with regards to making the reports, the findings public? Is that something, in your opinion, that needs to be amended in the Act?
Absolutely. Right now, under the Act, there's the discretion whether the hearing is to be heard in public or in private, as the case may be. And what you have is a situation where the commissioners can decide that, depending on the issues of national security and whether it's in the national interest that there be in-camera hearings and so on. But at the end of the day, what I'm saying is you have the report, and the report has to be acted on. That is the reason why the Commission of Inquiry is appointed, to provide a report for the future guidance of the powers that be in terms of dealing with the situation or the situation has occurred and preventing its reoccurrence. So in those circumstances, I'm saying the first step, the first order of business after the report is presented to the president by the commissioners is that it be laid in Parliament. And I think that that should be made mandatory. It's not a matter of discretion for any the government of the day. If it is that the report is so sensitive in terms of national security, then the government must come out and say that. It must be issued. The commission of inquiry can issue a statement, a covering letter, if you want to put it that way, saying, look, certain paragraphs of this report are national security sensitive, and we advise caution in its dissemination. But other than that, and barring that, the entire report should be laid in Parliament, and the public, who at the end of the day is paying for this report, have we become privy to the contents of the report. I think that is absolutely essential, and that furthers our democracy.
Senior Counsel, forgive me if I sound silly, but in the most serious manner speaking, is there a need for a commission of inquiry into commissions of inquiries?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think what you can have is a committee set up to look at the efficacy of the current legislation in respect of commissions of inquiry. Now, the first port of call is you have to accept whether, or the country has to accept whether commissions of inquiry are useful adjuncts to the promotion and furtherance of democracy or not. If you say no, well, that is the end of it. You pass legislation to debunk and get rid of commissions of inquiry. But you have to decide what you're going to put in place. If you say yes, and I'm firmly in the corner of those who say yes, that commissions of inquiry are necessary for the furtherance of our democracy, and they have a very useful role to play in that regard, then you have to look at the outdated legislation. You have to look at the current requirements of our society, our societal requirements, and propose amendments to increase the efficiency and efficacy of commissions of inquiry, and enact legislation and rules and regulations that would achieve that objective.
Well, I'm just getting now to the point where, based off of a greater understanding this morning of commissions of inquiries, the Act and what they allow for, that I suppose, as with most things here in TNT, there's a lack of will to actually change these things, I suppose for the benefit of all. Because as you've mentioned, there's no need or no obligation for such recommendations to actually be adhered to, or any policy directives to be implemented based off of those recommendations. So therefore, to me, it seems, just as a man on the street, that is a complete lack of will from those who have the powers to actually make a difference and make it more effective. So currently, even though the legislation exists and the legislation provides for commissions of inquiries, it's simply the actions of those that make it, well, I suppose, in some people's eyes, a waste. As you mentioned, it promotes democracy, it furthers our democracy. But people in TNT, unfortunately, Senior Counsel Sinanan, have not seen the benefits of such.
Well, I think what our experience has been, and as I say, that the reports, when they are tendered, end up on the shelf of some ministry gathering dust. You find, I think our experience has been in some instances, you find that a commission of inquiry is appointed, they report, and the government changes. And the incumbent government, the new government says, well, listen, look, we are not going to adhere to any recommendations by this commission of inquiry appointed by our predecessor. They take a very parochial and myopic view of it. So, and that betrays a lack of political will. What I'm saying is, if it was mandatory that the report be laid in Parliament, then it would be open to parliamentarians on all sides, in the independent Senate, to agitate for the recommendations in the report to be given consideration by the government of the day. So that what you have then, that is the first step then. I think in getting the political will activated in order to do something.
Senior Counsel Avery Sinan, thank you very much for joining me this morning. An argument in favor of commissions and inquiries with the point stressed on that there needs to be amendments to the Act. Thank you very much, sir, for your explanations this morning, for sharing your thoughts and opinions with us. And I wish you all the very best.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. It was my pleasure.
Do have a good day. Senior Counsel Avery Sinan this morning actually just explained to us exactly what commissions of inquiries are, the powers, even explained to us what salmon letters are. I'm sure that's a term that you've been made aware of, as is the explanations for delays in the final report of the Commission of Inquiry into Paria. Salmon letters were actually issued. But ladies and gentlemen, it can work for us. And as Senior Counsel Avery Sinan explained, it furthers our democracy. Currently, as it stands, though, the Act, which was actually written in the late 19th century, well, that needs to be amended to be brought up to times with Trinidad and Tobago's modern-day society. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Keaton Shaw. This has been AM Prime, wishing you a grand day ahead. And I'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN.
I'm Andy Johnson, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinidadians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
Attempt to